Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. Welcome to this budget session, post-budget session analysis organized by Research and Ranking. A big thank you to all the participants who have logged in today and to our team who have done a thorough analysis last night and we are presenting our takeaways. Just to summarize the key points, and I'll touch upon the summary part and we'll have the individual analysts talk about their sectors. The first budget in the Amrit Kal, as the FM called it, the measures are all kind of taking forward the pro growth, pro reforms, pro Capex measures that were announced in the previous two budgets. I'll highlight the top 5 takeaways and some of the other takeaways that was there from the budget. So number one, the 7 priorities were being listed. Some of them include, let's say, infrastructure investment, green growth, youth power, financial sector. Number 2, the personal tax rate slabs were changed, and we understand that there would be reasonable savings coming from there, leading to consumption growth. Number 3, a big Capex outlay, 33% jump from 7.5 odd lakh to almost 10 lakh odd crore plus proposed for the next financial year. Out of which the railway is also seeing a very big jump, 70% almost, and which is a 9x growth in last 10 years. Fiscal deficit number 4 point जो target है वो it is maintained at 6.4%. And the next year target is kept at 5.9%. उनका जो government का जो long term target है which is by March 26 to bring it down to 4.5%, वो भी उन्होंने फिलहाल तो maintain रखा है. My colleague tells me, Franklin tells me that थोड़ा मुश्किल होगा, but let's see how do they manage to achieve it. But for now they have kept that number. Lastly, there are a couple of initiatives towards affordable housing, urban infra, energy transition, renewable, and national green hydrogen mission. Amongst the smaller measures, or let's say the other measures, quickly going through the corporate tax rate revenues जो हैं जो उन्होंने assume किए हैं वो that's only 10.4%. That's very realistic considering जो nominal GDP है वो 10.5% की expectation है. So उसको buoyancy rate बोलते हैं. So it's roughly 1, which is very practical. GST collections 12% growth का की expectations है. Divestment proceeds बहुत reasonable रखे हैं, which is around 50,000 crore. Last year हमने which is current financial year ending March 23rd, वो भी हमने 50,000 crore तक achieve कर रहे हैं. Next is काफ़ी measures हैं जो startups, MSMEs और private players को ध्यान में रख के किए गए हैं. टूरिज्म पे बहुत बड़ा फोकस दिया है इस बार. किम्बर्ली उस पर डिटेल में बात करेंगी. कुछ और रिलेटेड स्पेसेस हैं जैसे एयरपोर्ट्स, हेलीपैड्स, वाटर एड्रोन्स, इन सब पे भी देयर इज फेयर अमाउंट ऑफ एम्फेसिस गिवन. कस्टम ड्यूटी की काफ़ी रैशनलाइजेशन की है. कुछ 21 रेट्स हैं हमारे सिस्टम में, उन्होंने स्लैश डाउन करके 13 रेट्स पे आ गए हैं. एंड अक्रॉस प्रोडक्ट्स उन्होंने रैशनलाइजेशन किया है, कीपिंग इन माइंड कि उसको रेट्स बहुत ज़्यादा हैं और कहीं उसको कटौती करने की जरूरत थी टू इन दैट डायरेक्शन ऑफ मेकिंग द इंडिया एज अ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब. आई वुड स्टॉप देयर. ओवरऑल टू समराइज, almost all the experts have given it a 8 or a 9 out of 10. The larger point is कि कल का मार्केट, आज का मार्केट में काफ़ी और वेरिएबल्स रहे हैं या रहेंगे, and assuming next tomorrow as well, which may not necessarily be a reflection of what the budget was. So उस पे बहुत ज़्यादा linkage नहीं हम रखेंगे तो better रहेगा, because as everybody is aware, there are so many things happening in various, including US Fed, including some of the Adani group stocks. इसलिए स्टॉक मार्केट के उससे ज़्यादा उसको कंक्लूजन ना डिराइव करें. ओवरऑल द बजट वाज वेरी pro growth and keeping in mind that we are expected to be, we have already reached to the position of 5th largest economy in the world, and अगले 4 से 5 सालों में we not 4 से 5, we will touch about $7 odd trillion, and In that journey of $10 trillion, somewhere in between, we will reach that third largest economy in the world also. So keeping in mind ये सारी चीजें overall budget का direction दिया गया. I'll request Parvati to now just highlight in brief couple of things जो हमें लगा थोड़ा सा miss था, and then we move on to the individual analysis.
Good afternoon, everyone. So while a lot of positives already spoken by Jaspreet, couple of things where the budget fell short primarily compared to the last budget or the earlier focuses includes allocations towards healthcare, more on the welfare side. On the defense side, it was again slightly short of expectations. Nothing mentioned on the PLI side, although that was more covered through rationalizations of custom duties on some aspects. Overall, even the rural expenditure was slightly lower from the Manrega and the other welfare schemes. So this was a slight disappointment from the expectations of the market. I think that's largely on the...
Okay, now I'll request Franklin to touch upon the biggest sector, BFSI, which has almost like 37% weight in Nifty, and उसमें भी हमने काफी उतार चढ़ाव देखा है in between yesterday morning and including today. Including I'm sure बहुत सवाल होंगे आप लोग के, and we'll take our questions after this. We'll having a quick roundup summary. And उसके बाद feel free to share your questions. Happy to take it up in the live session itself. So over to you, Franklin, for the BFSI brief.
Yeah. So in terms of the major announcements, one is that the government has announced UIDF, which is Urban Infrastructure Development Fund, to cater to the urban tier 2 and tier 3 centers. So we already have an RIDF which was launched in 2004, wherein in case the banks are unable to meet the PSL shortfall, so they invest in these RIDF bonds and are able to meet the PSL targets. So similar to RIDF, that was for rural. Now the government has come out with urban, which is UIDF. So the banks will get another avenue, an opportunity to invest in these and meet their PSL shortfall. So it is very positive from the banking system meeting their PSL, which is a priority sector lending shortfall. So the government has already earmarked around 10,000 crores for this particular fund, and it will be under the banner of the NHP, under the guidance of the NHP. A couple of more announcements which is very positive for the MSME sector. So the credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs is basically a collateral free loan which the banks give to the MSMEs, and it boosts the MSME sector because that gives more comfort to the banks to lend it, since it's backed by the government guarantees. So the government has earmarked worth 2 lakh crores of additional credit under this scheme, and the government will be placing 9,000 crores for lending into the towards the MSME sector. So that's one. Second point for MSME is also during this COVID period, there were a lot of projects which the MSMEs were not able to go through with. So they had to give a performance guarantee for this. So now what the government has said that, considering it was COVID, 95% of that performance guarantee will be given back to the MSME entities. So that will help them improve their cash flow and also boost their overall business prospects. Thirdly, this is going to actually benefit a lot of the mid-sized banks which are lending to the MSME sector, and also some NBFCs and fintechs which are catering to this segment. In terms of gross and net borrowings, the gross borrowings were at 15.4 lakh crores and net borrowings are at 11.8 lakh crores. So this is largely positive for the bond market because this number is being slightly better than what the street was anticipating. So a lot of NBFC entities who are borrowing from the bond market, it will help keep their cost of funds in check. Couple of things which were slightly negative for insurance companies. One is on the new tax regime. So the new tax regime has been made more attractive. It's about 20 to 25% more attractive compared to its earlier version. And my colleague Amaya will specify the details of this particular aspect and how it compares with the existing old tax regime. So in terms of investments into insurance, be it life insurance, general insurance, or ELSS funds. So that will be incrementally negative because the new tax regime is now a bit more attractive. And also from a home loan perspective, it will be neutral for for housing finance companies, since person who is having a home loan will still opt for the old tax regime. In terms of premium, also the government has said that if a premium is more than 5 lakhs, then the proceeds from that premium will be taxed on an incremental, and that's only for an incremental over and above the 5 lakhs. So SBI Life has said that about 2% of their top line is part of this, and ICICI Pru has said that about 5% of their top line is part of this category, which is likely to be impacted. However, having said that, on the margin front, these funds earn lower, are having much lower margins. So the margin impact will be lesser on that front.
We want to Kimberly for a quick bite on the tourism space, the consumer and consumer discretionary, and a little bit on the green, the go green motive that they are trying to.
So one of the key highlights in this budget, first was the emphasis on tourism, especially domestic tourism. So what as a part of this plan, the government will select 50 destinations, and this will basically, these destinations will be developed as a complete tourism package. So there will be physical and virtual connectivity, tourist guides, food streets, everything, and all the relevant aspects would be available on an app for each of these destinations. So this will make traveling very convenient for the domestic and foreign travelers within India. Apart from this, in a contrary move, they've actually increased the tax collected at source for foreign overseas tour packages. So clearly the emphasis here is on driving domestic tourism, and it was reiterated a lot during the budget. If we talk about consumption, there weren't any major announcements except for, of course, the cigarette related tax. Now over here, one of the duties on cigarettes has increased by 16%. So effectively, the tax has actually increased by around 2% on cigarettes, which is not very meaningful considering that there hasn't been any tax hike taken in cigarettes in the last 2 budgets, and this is the 3rd budget where a minuscule hike has been taken. So it will not be difficult for your cigarette companies to pass this kind of hike, and it also sort of shows that the regime continues to be stable. The next announcement in the consumption space was related to lab-grown diamonds. So as the name suggests, lab-grown diamonds are not naturally mined like the normal diamonds, but they are created in a lab. Now this is very popular globally, but it's still a very new and nascent market in India. So clearly the government wanted to develop this market and more opportunities in it, which is why they'll be providing a research and development grant towards lab-grown diamonds to one of the IITs. And they've also reduced the custom duty that is required for the seeds of making these lab-grown diamonds. So the custom duty has been reduced from 5% to 0% for these seeds that are imported. So this is an industry that has been a new focus for the government. And of course, coming to green growth, which as we know was one of the 7 key priorities of this budget. So there have been several measures in this regard. One is, of course, the 35,000 crore outlay that they have laid out for energy transition to reduce the carbon intensity of our economy. And then there was the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which was actually announced in Jan of 2023 with an outlay of 19,700 crores, but the government sort of reiterated it during this budget as well. So this National Green Hydrogen Mission will help develop greener energy sources and promote its consumption in the country. Then there were also programs to incentivize sustainable action. So you have the PM Pranam, which is going to incentivize farmers that use alternate fertilizers. And then there is also the Green Credit Program, which is going to incentivize environmentally sustainable action by corporates, individuals, etc. And apart from that, there were a lot of sustainable ecosystem development measures. But one of the highlights would be the measure related to green mobility. So the government has also there's been a custom duty exemption on the import of capital goods and machinery required for lithium ion cells that are used in EVs, the batteries of EVs. So again, a lot of measures on the green growth side and clearly a priority sector for the government.
Okay, we move on to after the green part. We move to the other space, which is Yash. He'll very briefly cover auto and the agri announcements. A bit louder, if you can, Yash, please.
Yeah. All right. So on the agricultural space, so agriculture credit target has been increased to 20 lakh crores. So this is overall positive for the agriculture sector as well as the agrochemical companies and the tractor companies. Then total subsidy for the fertilizers has been reduced by 22% to 17.5 lakh crores. Now this reduction is adequate as per the globally fertilizer prices have been corrected. PM Pranam was launched. So what this will help is that this will promote more of the alternate fertilizers as well as the incentivize state and union territories to promote the alternative fertilizers and reduce the use of chemical fertilizers. Then Atmanirbhar horticulture plant program was been launched with an outlay of 2,200 crores. Now this will boost quality planting material for high horticulture plants and the nutrients. To make India a global hub of millets, which was termed as Shri Anna by RFM, so Indian Institute of Millet Research in Hyderabad will be upgraded to encourage tech-led developments in the millets. Now if we move to the auto sector, now custom duties were given an exemption for all the machinery as well as capital goods which are been imported to manufacture lithium cells which are going into your electric vehicle batteries. Now this will definitely provide an impetus to green mobility and it would be positive for battery manufacturers. Government is going to allocate additional funds to the scrappage policy. With this, what is going to happen is central and state governments will also scrap their old polluting vehicles and this will definitely boost the demand for the new vehicles. There was some increase in basic custom duties for completely built units as well as semi-knockdown units. So this will definitely boost the domestic production as well as it will also lead to import subsidization. Government is going to provide viability gap funding for battery energy storage system projects with a capacity of 4,000 gigawatts per hour. Now this will promote more energy storage system projects within the country and will have a better energy infrastructure and this will definitely lead to higher penetration of EVs. Now if we move to chemical sectors, there was certain reduction in basic custom duties. So acid grade fluorspar custom duties were reduced from 5% to 2%, which has been used to manufacture hydrofluoric acid. Custom duties for crude glycerine was reduced from 7.5% to 2.5%, which is used to manufacture epichlorohydrin. If we look at the ethyl alcohol, so there were custom duties of 5% and which has been exempted now, which is going into your industrial chemicals as well as the ethylamines. If we move to electronics, so reduction in basic custom duties of 2% to nil has been provided for camera lenses as well as certain import parts which goes into your mobile manufacturing. So this initiative has been taken to boost the domestic mobile manufacturing within the country. Apart from mobiles, also there was a reduction in basic custom duties from 5% to 2.5% for certain parts of the open cells which are being used to manufacture LED TVs. And to promote domestic manufacturing of chimneys, government has also reduced custom duties on heat coils which is used to manufacture chimneys, and coupled with this also they have doubled the custom duties on the imported chimneys from 7.5% to 15%.
Thank you, Yash. We'll just touch upon the healthcare and tech space. There were very few announcements, but nevertheless, Parvati, I will request you to quickly cover that.
From a tech perspective, digitization was the theme and the overarching story. It has been across any sectors that we kind of looked at. So it could be agriculture, education, healthcare. There were various initiatives which were launched which kind of focused in taking India to the next level where at the start itself, UPI was highlighted with the kind of response it has generated in the volumes across. So some of the important announcements in this space include the make artificial AI in India and even make it work for India, especially with respect to three key sectors which included agriculture, healthcare and sustainable cities. This will make us, making in-house such solutions will help our growing companies and startups within this space. Apart from it, the major another area where we are talking is agriculture. So public digital infrastructure in this space, especially oriented towards farmer-centric solutions, which could include right from crop protection, insurance, credit, etc., and again be a big boost to the rural development, even agri-tech companies. The two other areas included upskilling and education, where within education, to especially for students who missed out crucial years in the last 2 years of pandemic, National Digital Library was kind of announced, where they could read across genres and languages and pick up from there. And for upskilling, different skill platforms or skill-based, demand-based upskilling with respect to coding, robotics, and those kinds of courses, especially to meet the gap in hiring. I think that's more on the technology side. Apart from it, on the healthcare side, if we were to look at, it was slightly below expectations from the industry, as I was highlighting earlier, at only a 12% YOY increase in the total allocation. Of the various schemes where a status quo was maintained, Ayushman Bharat and Digital India got more prominence, primarily as Ayushman Bharat is, more focuses towards poor people, and digital healthcare is more towards bringing a seamless overall access at a global level. So that's where they are looking at. COVID, no extra allocation was made, which essentially shows private vaccination could be the way going forward for the booster dosage. In addition, a couple of key announcements included setting up of nursing colleges, which is more to meet the shortages of nursing staff from the hospital industry, and certain R&D support to the pharma companies, which were the positives.
थैंक यू पार्वती, इस टेक स्पीड से आपने पूरा फुर्ती से एनालिसिस करके हमारे श्रोताओं को पेश किया. अब फ्रेंड्स, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस अराउंड स्पेसिफिक स्टॉक्स. We won't be able to take that as mentioned in the chat box. We are SEBI-registered, and therefore we are bound by certain regulations. However, there are certain questions around the Adani group and what it can have implications on the market. उसमें हम थोड़ा brief में discuss कर सकते हैं, but उसके लिए आपको हमारे साथ थोड़ा अंत तक बने रहना पड़ेगा. Let's keep that. If that's the best part for today's analysis, let's keep it to the end. Let's cover the important agenda for today, जो बजट है, बजट सेशन. इसके बाद हम मूव करते हैं हमारे टैक्स एक्सपर्ट की तरफ. हमें जो थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ में अभी सिर्फ मेंशन करेंगे कि जो मेजर्स अनाउंस किए गए हैं वो किस कैटेगरी ऑफ पीपल को बेनिफिट करते हैं एंड किसको नहीं करते हैं. एंड इन केस देयर आर फ्यूचर और क्वेश्चंस उसके डिटेल में किसी को जानना है तो वी कैन कम बैक ऑन दैट लेटर. ओवर टू यू में.
So during the current in the current budget, they have changed the tax rate and the tax slabs for in the new tax regime. So we did some analysis on who this could benefit and who should take the benefit of this new tax regime. So if we compare the old tax regime and the new tax regime, then for an individual who is to do deductions and take deductions under ATC, and you should take deductions for Mediclaim. For him, it would be better if him or her, if they switch to the new tax regime. But for someone who is taking deduction under HRA or is paying interest on their home loan and taking it as a deduction, for them it would be better if they stick to the old tax regime, as they would be saving on their tax.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amey. With that, we almost come towards the end. There is a one piece left. I'll come back to Franklin just to ensure that we are able to attend to some questions. So let's start quickly with the questions. By the way, हमने जो हमारा नोट है, रिसर्च नोट वेरी डिटेल्ड, हमने वो लिंक में भेज दिया है in the chat box. I'll request Shyam if he can again drop that link in case जो हमारे साथ बाद में जुड़े हैं या किसी ने मिस कर दिया हो, तो वो लिंक हम दोबारा चैट बॉक्स में शेयर कर रहे हैं. प्लीज़ फील फ्री, आप आराम से उसको पढ़ सकते हैं एट लेजर. Let me just quickly take up a question which is budget थोड़ा good maybe because of Adani FP call off. Yeah, so as I said कि बजट के लिंकेजेस ज़रूर हैं कल के दिन में, आज के दिन में, because there is so much of news लेट्स से कल का जो फर्स्ट हाफ था वो ऑब्वियसली बजट के अराउंड था, बट सम टाइम आफ्टर 1 PM एंड सब्सिक्वेंटली द अडानी ग्रुप न्यूज़ अराउंड दैट वो थोड़ा उसने टेक ओवर कर लिया. एंड लास्ट नाइट ऑब्वियसली फेड का जो कमेंट्री आया है which by the way is very encouraging, which means कि उन्होंने 25 bps हाइक किया और बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसा लग नहीं रहा कि बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज करेंगे अपना उन्होंने जो एक टारगेट्स लिए हैं. सो दैट had the final this thing. So net the larger message from the budget is that it's a win-win for all sections of the society, as my colleague has put in the chat box. हाँ, ये एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है. इनफैक्ट I'll come to Franklin to answer that because he would have some statistics around that कि जो अडानी ग्रुप का जो एक्सपोजर है वो बैंक्स, PSU बैंक्स, प्राइवेट सेक्टर बैंक्स एंड लेट्स से अदर चैनल्स वो कितना है, एंड क्या अब हमें सही में कोई घबराने की ज़रूरत है और we can just take it easy, breathe easy कि हमारा बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सपोजर vulnerable नहीं है to the risk attached. So I'll ask Franklin to answer that, and then he'll continue with a quick bite on the infra announcements.
Yeah. So if you see the total debt of Adani is about 2 lakh crores, and which has increased over the last 3 years. It was about 1 lakh crores 3 years back, and today it stands at 2 lakh crores. However, the debt towards the banking sector is only 40%, which is about 80,000 crores, and largely it's PSU banks which have about 75% of the banking sector debt, and private banks have a smaller share. What is also encouraging to note is that in the last 3 years, whatever acquisitions or incremental debt has come, the banking sector has contributed to only 15% of that incremental debt. So whatever debt that the banking sector has is all towards his earlier projects, and they are very well backed by collateral. So PSU banks generally, they always focus on collateral, and that's how they operate. So they always take collateral in excess of at least 2x, 3x. So that's one thing, and there should be no concerns because if you look at this debt as a percentage of your overall loan book, for private banks it's very small at just 0.4% of loan book, and even for PSU banks it is at just 0.7% of their loan book. And we do not anticipate this entire there would be any implications, but even if there was something to happen, the debt is very small to the banking sector. So the banking sector is not going to have any sort of implication. You just compare that to the gross NPAs that the banking sector had in FY18, it was 11%, and which has come down now quite significantly to 5%. So the banking sector is in very good stead in this particular aspect. And coming to the your infrastructure takeaways. So I think very big takeaways, as Jaspreet said, is that the Capex has been increased to 10 lakh crores versus 7.5 lakh crores in the previous year. And if you see Capex as a percentage of your overall expenditure, that has moved up to 22%. So the higher the percentage, the better is the quality of your expenditure. So 2 years back, this number was at just 15%. So 15% has improved last year to 19%. And today we are at 22% Capex as a percentage of your overall expenditure. And if you see the last 10 years track record also, this has been hovering in the range of 12 to 15%. So definitely the government has had a very strong focus on Capex, and it's clearly visible in the way our the entire infrastructure sector is moving over the last 3-4 years. Ministry of Roads has also seen a good allocation. It stands at 2.7 lakh crores versus 2.2 lakh crores. NHI has also got a very good allocation of 1.6 lakh crores versus 1.4 lakh crores earlier. And also your railways has got a good allocation of 2.4 lakh crores versus the last year's allocation of 1.4 lakh crores. So overall, the government has ensured that Capex is being very well taken care of, and future growth is yet to come by. Also, while these are the broad, larger segments, they have ensured that even the first mile and last mile connectivity is very well taken care of. So there are 100 transport infrastructure projects across coal, steel, power, fertilizers, food grains, wherein they have identified this space, and with an investment of 75,000 crores, they said on priority basis they will clear out all the bottlenecks and ensure that this is very well taken care of. So it will help the logistics sector and infrastructure sector also. So from the big to the very small, very well the government has kind of taken care of this entire space.
थैंक यू फ्रैंकलिन. फ्रेंड्स, हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं जितना मिक्स कर पाएँ बिटवीन हिंदी एंड इंग्लिश. सो वी ट्राइंग आवर बेस्ट देयर. एक सवाल है, निफ्टी वोलेटाइल क्यों है सिंस बजट डिस्पाइट गवर्नमेंट्स पॉजिटिव साइन. सो एज वी डिस्कस, देयर वर 3 इवेंट्स yesterday, not one. One obviously was the budget, and by the time उसका एनालिसिस करते या कर ही रहे थे कि तो अडानी की ग्रुप की न्यूज़ आ रही थी. एंड ऑब्वियसली towards the end there was this expectation कि US Fed कुछ कहीं 50 बिप्स अनाउंस ना कर दे, कहीं अपना जो आउटलुक है वो जो न्यूट्रल सा रहा है वो कहीं उसको हॉकिश ना कर दे. तो so that was one up, given that 2 events are behind us, and I would say third event, which is again the budget and the US Fed का 2 बड़े event are behind us, and जो तीसरा है वो भी लग रहा है कि आज और कल में उसमें काफ़ी क्लैरिटी आ जाएगी. इन द सेंस दैट इंक्रीमेंटली आप देख रहे हैं, जस्ट एन एग्जांपल, अ लॉट ऑफ बैंक्स एंटिटीज़ अपना एक्सपोजर कितना है उधर वो बता रही हैं खुल के सामने, लाइक LIC डिड, लाइक इंडसइंड बैंक डिड, एंड ऑब्वियसली विदाउट नेमिंग द ग्रुप. तो वो दे आर ट्राइंग टू सूद द प्रेशर्स या काम द इन्वेस्टर्स नर्व कि इतना बड़ा एक्सपोजर नहीं है, और अगर है भी तो इट इज़ ऑल बैक्ड बाय कोलैटरल. एंड कोलैटरल कोई ऐसा कोलैटरल नहीं है जो विच इज़ विल गिव कैश फ्लो इन द फ्यूचर. दे आर गिविंग कैश फ्लोज, आज ही वो कैश फ्लोज दे रहे हैं. तो इट इज़ वेरी गुड कैश फ्लो वाले ये सारे कोलैटरल्स हैं. सो इन दैट सेंस आई वुड से कि इंक्रीमेंटली जो न्यूज़ है उधर से वो काफ़ी न्यूट्रल हो जाना चाहिए. सो डायरेक्शनली वी वुड बी हैविंग लेस वोलेटिलिटी ahead. What is the government impact, percentage impact of budget on GDP is a question Ramadas Acharya ji पूछ रहे हैं. So Ramadas ji, so we mentioned 3.3% of GDP is now infra capex, करीबन 10 लाख करोड़, और ये करीबन 1 to 1.5% हुआ करता था कुछ साल पहले. And the railway capex is also about 2.4 lakh करोड़, जो again उसमें 70% जंप देखने का, द अनाउंस जो जंप है वो देखने को मिला है. सो ओवरऑल दैट इज़ द काइंड ऑफ बिग क्वांटम जंप जो टुवर्ड्स केपेक्स कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट आउटले की तरफ देखने को मिला है. स्टॉक स्पेसिफिक काफ़ी क्वेश्चंस हैं, वी वोंट बी एबल टू टेक इट अप बिकॉज अगेन इट्स बेसिस योर रिस्क एपेटाइट. सो 2 थिंग्स, वन इज़ किसी का रिस्क ज़्यादा है किसी का कम है, तो वो आई डोंट नो जो ये क्वेश्चंस पूछ रहे हैं स्पेसिफिकली लेट्स से अराउंड डिक्सन और LTTS और ITC, आप लोगों का क्या रिस्क एपेटाइट, आई डोंट नो. इट्स डिफिकल्ट टू गेज दैट अभी लाइव चैट में, तो वो पॉसिबल नहीं है आपसे जानना. सेकंड, मैं आपको आज अगर रिकमेंडेशन दे रहा हूँ, लेट्स से आई से बाय, एंड लेट्स से 6 months later, 1 year later आई चेंज माई व्यू, तो आई विल नॉट गेट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी कि मैं आपको वो बताऊँगा कैसे. तो इट अंडरस्टैंड बोथ द चैलेंजेस, एंड विद दैट ओवरऑल if you are a client, तो आपको वो लार्जली हमारे स्टॉक्स और उसका व्यू और उसकी रिपोर्ट और उसका बाइंग रेंज, एग्जिट रेंज सब आपको मिला है. एंड अगर कहीं पे कुछ डाउट है, प्लीज़ फील फ्री, आप हमारे को यू कैन ईमेल इट टू अस कस्टमर सर्विस पे, एंड आपको ज़रूर जवाब देंगे. डिफेंस के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा अनाउंसमेंट नहीं है. पार्वती ने इस पर टच किया था अपॉन अदर्स सम अदर सेक्टर्स. गणेश जी सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, तो नॉट मच अराउंड डिफेंस, बट फेयर टू अज्यूम कि इस साल देर आर फार अदर इम्पॉर्टेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स लाइक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, लाइक रूरल, लाइक पर्सनल टैक्स रेट्स, बिकॉज उसको टच किए हुए बहुत टाइम हो गया था. तो वो इसलिए उसको उतना इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं मिला. प्लीज़ अंडरस्टैंड कि क्यों किया जा रहा था पर्सनल टैक्स फ्रंट, कि द आइडिया इज़ टू ब्रॉडली मूव टू अ जोन वेयर इट इज़ फोकस इज लेस ऑन एग्जेम्पशंस. क्योंकि हम लोग जो आई मीन एटलीस्ट जब से मैंने पहली बार ITR फाइल किया 2003 में, तब से आज तक हम इन्वेस्टमेंट्स और एक तरीके से इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, इंश्योरेंस है, हाउसिंग लोन है, और म्यूचुअल फंड्स, एनी अदर थिंग, one of the reasons, if not the only reason, has been tax breaks, and we have to move. अब 20 साल हो गए हैं, I mean, इस बात को, and obviously ये breaks तो बहुत टाइम से चले आ रहे हैं. At some stage you need to move to a zone जहाँ पे it should come automatically, and it should not be the saving of tax should not be the reason of people making investments. तो उस चीज़ को ध्यान रख के, and it makes life very easy also, right? आपकी ITR फाइलिंग जो आज शायद 1-2 दिन लग जाती होगी, वो मे बी it'll be matter of 1 hour tomorrow if you were to just have if you were to move to the new regime, because उसमें बहुत उसमें कुछ करना ही नहीं है, it will be automatically calculated, right? Since there cannot be any difference between what you submit and what the ITR is accepting it, right? There's no confusion because it's very clear, since there are no investment proofs to be given. Moving on, what sector is in relation to budget will impact what? So, sir, this is a question from again Ramadaji. So, question, कौन से sectors benefit करेंगे, कौन से नहीं करेंगे? So, broadly micro अगर sectors दें तो जैसे tourism एक है, the projects or the sub segments which are focusing on green energy, the national hydrogen mission, EVs. They are some of the spaces जो इस पे definitely positively impact होती हैं, and including जो focus रहा है, continued focus on healthcare and also on digital segment, and obviously infrastructure. The space which is obviously an obvious one which is taken a hit for some and थोड़ा time के लिए रहेगा, and उसमें exact numbers अभी भी companies calculate करी हैं, is specifically insurance companies. तो उनका both ways, जो 5 लाख प्रीमियम सालाना जो जमा करते हैं उस पर इम्पैक्ट रहेगा जब उनके प्रोसीड्स मिलेंगे at the time of when that maturity happens. और दूसरा है जब जो इन्होंने इंसेंटिवाइज कर रहे हैं इंडिविजुअल्स को टू मूव टू द न्यू टैक्स रेजिम. तो दोनों तरफ से उसमें इम्पैक्ट रहेगा. there is a question around the tax collected at source on investors overseas. उसमें आई थिंक 2 चीज़ें हैं. एक है कि जो एक्चुअली 3 हैं. एक है मेडिकल स्ट्रोक एजुकेशन के लिए जो लोग खर्चा करते हैं, एक है टूरिज्म के लिए जो खर्चा करते हैं, और तीसरा एक जो रेमिट करते हैं. तो ये 3 कैटेगरीज हैं. आई रिक्वेस्ट माय कोलीग किम्बर्ली टू जस्ट ब्रीफली एक्सप्लेन तीनों के केसेस में क्या इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है, और जो टैक्स कलेक्टेड एट सोर्स एंड एग्जैक्टली हुआ क्या है. इफ यू कैन स्टार्ट विद दैट किम्बर्ली.
So basically on foreign remittances for medical and educational purposes, there's been no change in the tax collected at source. But for foreign remittances for overseas tour packages, like I mentioned earlier, and for investment in equity assets or any other purpose, the tax collected at source has been increased from 5% to 20%. So ideally this can be seen as a sort of a negative sentiment impact as of now, but I don't think there'll be any major readings to take away from it as of now.
And same चीज रेमिटेंस में भी है. So remittance and tourism both are, TCS has increased from tax related, so increased from 5% to 20%, and this can be adjusted in your final tax when you file it. So it's not that आपसे कोई additional tax लेके you don't have a net loss. The only loss possibly could be कि आपने आज जमा की, and obviously जो interest तब तक का बन सकता था वो you possibly lose out. But it's deposited with Government of India, and you can get it adjusted against your full and final tax payment. But as Kimberly said, ये थोड़ा sentiment ज़्यादा है, and for people who and this again will be above a certain amount. वो एक देखना पड़ेगा fine print में. I think 5 lakhs or more. या एक particular amount के ऊपर ये लगता है. It's not that remittance के लिए तो I know because I recently had a discussion with someone. तो I think 7 lakhs का है amount. 7 lakhs के नीचे करेंगे तो ये नहीं लगता, उसके ऊपर फिर ये 5% लगता था जो बढ़ जाएगा. So there are ways to, let's say you have to do, let's say 20 lakhs, you can always spread it over 3 years and do it assuming you have that flexibility, ताकि वो 7 लाख के नीचे रहे और वो 5% जो पहले था 20% अब वो ना लगे. तो there are ways obviously, but this is not the session where we are trying to identify the loopholes, but the larger point is कि उतना बड़ा impact नहीं होना चाहिए. एक बार अगेन केवल इफ यू कैन टच अपॉन वो सिगरेट्स पे क्या हुआ है और उस पर क्या इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है आईटीसी जैसी कंपनीज में. अगेन नो रिकमेंडेशन ऑन बाय और सेल आईटीसी.
Yeah, so again, after a gap of 2 budgets, there's been an announcement on the cigarette tax, which was sort of anticipated. But the tax increase was actually lower than the street estimates in the sense that it's been a 16% increase on the NCCD tax, which translates to an actual 2% tax increase on the price of a cigarette. So that isn't very meaningful in the overall scheme of things.
All right. How is again Ramadas ji का सवाल है, how is the government improving supply of lithium? Yash, if you want to talk about that, आप काफी देर से शांत बैठे हैं, शायद ये क्वेश्चन आपको एक्साइट कर दे.
So alright, there are a couple of companies who are engaged in sourcing lithium as well as into lithium manufacturing of lithium cells as well as batteries. So of course lithium availability is an issue and it's a global issue, right? But of course these companies who have spent decades and almost more than 20 years plus 10 years into this lithium sourcing as well as the lithium chemistry, so of course they have multiple sources, and as India wants to have a complete manufacturing within the country for lithium ion batteries which are used in your EVs or for lithium cells for multiple uses into solar and other things in the sunrise sector, so definitely all these companies have their own tie-ups and they are very confident that of course lithium availability won't be an issue, and that's why the sources are adequate globally, and of course the tie-ups are very strong who are into for decades of this lithium chemistry, so that won't be an issue. Till date it doesn't seem as an issue right now.
एक और सवाल आपके लिए है यश, जो फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी घटा दी गई है, तो सवाल है जसजीत ढिल्लन जी का कि लैंड होल्डिंग्स इंडिया में फार्मर्स के बाद इतनी मैकेनाइजेशन नहीं हुई है एंड इट्स नॉट अ वायबल सोल्यूशन, तो सब्सिडी ऑन फर्टिलाइजर शुड हैव इंक्रीज्ड, बट वो नहीं हुआ है, इनफैक्ट वो शायद घटा दी गई है, राइट? 2 लाख से कुछ 1.7 लाख करोड़ कर दी गई है, तो इस पे आपका क्या विचार है एंड क्या इम्पैक्ट देखा जा सकता है on fertilizer companies?
Right, so if you'll see last year in calendar year 22, after Russia-Ukraine war, globally the prices of the certain fertilizers like urea, DAP, ammonia have risen by 50 to 60%, right? And that was a reason, if you look at the budgeted estimate for FY23, the fertilizer subsidy was 1.5 lakh crores, and looking at this steep increase in prices, the revised estimate was much higher. Now if you'll see from November and December 22, globally the prices have started to cool off, and even the natural gas prices have started to cool off, so the manufacturing for globally overseas companies the cost has been reduced, so that is why the subsidy for the FY24 has been reduced, which is in line with the price correction of the fertilizers globally. So if you'll see from the actual budgeted estimate of 23, from 1.5 lakh crore it has been increased to 1.76 lakh crores, and it is the reduction of 22% is from the revised estimate.
Thank you Yash. I will move to Franklin कि ये इंश्योरेंस में if you can spend a minute कि क्या exactly on जो भी दोनों measures हैं उसके अराउंड सवाल हैं, without naming any particular company, कि कंपनी A जिसका let's say एक्सपोजर इतना है तो कितना इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है, कंपनी B जिसका कम एक्सपोजर है, तो इन्वेस्टर्स को वो जानने में इंटरेस्ट है कि किस टाइप ऑफ इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज को इम्पैक्ट ज़्यादा होगा, किसको कम होगा.
So firstly, it is you have to understand that this is the total amount of premium which is paid in the entire year. So the tax, the proceeds of the tax will be only if you are exceeding 5 lakhs of premium in a single year. That amount itself is very huge. So generally, people do not pay 5 lakhs of premium in a single year. In addition, there is also a ULIP which people pay, which people invest in. So that ULIP category is separate. So that has a limit of 2.5 lakhs. So the total limit is about 2.5 lakhs plus 5 lakhs. So if you are spending more than 7.5 lakhs of premium in a single year, only then you will be taxed, and that too on an incremental basis, not on the entire amount. So people, so in that context, now what some companies have specified, which is the range of 2 to 5%. This is on an aggregate amount. So when you look at it on an incremental basis, this percentage will again be lower. Second point to note is companies who earn the margins on these high value products, the margins are generally lower than the average of the entire product profile, since they are bringing these are high value items. That is why the margins on these are very much lower. So when you aggregate both of these things, you will realize that at a margin profile and then at a profitability and then at an embedded value level, the impact of it gets drastically reduced. So it's not to impact the insurance company, but it is mostly to see to it that the high net worth individuals are not using it as a tool for saving taxes. That is the essence of coming up with this. So the insurance sector will have some small impact, but it is not it's not going to be as big as it is being projected. That is one. The second is on the shift to the newer tax regime. So from that perspective, what normally when insurance companies do their marketing as well, they project the insurance as many a times as a investment vehicle. You would have also realized when an insurance agent approaches you, he would use this tool saying that please invest, you will get the benefit under 80C for life, and beyond 80C if it is health insurance, mediclaim. So this marketing of insurance companies will have to rebrand and remarket their product. But conceptually, if you see, insurance and investment should not be mixed. That is what the old adage says, that you should always use investment for protecting your life or health, and not to be used as an investment vehicle. So to that extent, it's a step in the right direction. There will be some intermediate adjustments. I wouldn't say that it is going to be it is going to impact the insurance industry going forward, but it is just a small adjustment that these insurance companies would need to make. But considering the penetration of insurance is very much low in our country when we compare it to global global companies, and a pandemic has happened which has made people very much aware of the importance of insurance both in life and in health. So definitely this the insurance industry will see an improvement. And I'll give you an example. If you look at persistency ratios, which is a very key metric to track, for example, 61 months persistency, which means that after 61 months how many policies are still active from the time of launch. So those numbers have increased by 400 to 500%. So 61-month persistency is somewhere in the range of 80-85%, and that has improved compared to pre-pandemic levels. So we are definitely seeing people more and more people coming to buy more and more insurance. The insurance rates have also increased compared to what it was in the pre-pandemic levels. So demand has also increased for insurance, and even if you look at the 3-year CAGR of the total premiums, they are growing anywhere in the range of 15 to 18%, which is a very, very healthy number. So definitely this industry is in good stead, and these are just minor hiccups in the overall scheme of things.
Okay, so thanks, Franklin. I'll now move to Amey. There's a question, when we compare the old and new tax regime for 15 lakhs taxable income, the new regime is showing more income tax than the old regime. Is my understanding correct? So if you can clarify that and just mention under the both the cases, आपका assumption क्या है? एक है जिसमें HRA benefit और एक है जिसमें housing loan benefit है. 15 लाख वाले कैटेगरी को if you can touch upon. राजेंद्र प्रसाद जी का सवाल है.
So you're saying
क्या impact होगा?
So you're saying old regime is better?
The new regime is showing old regime is better उनके हिसाब से. तो new में ज़्यादा tax बन रहा है. आपके हिसाब से क्या होता है?
Yeah, so the first thing we have to understand is what assumptions we are taking while making the calculation.
दोनों cases आप बता दो.
Right. So if we take the old tax regime, and उसमें if you are taking only the 80C का deduction and mediclaim का deduction, तो which comes total to 2,50,000 with the standard deduction of 50,000. तो वो केस में it would be better for you to switch to the new tax regime. But if you are of course taking HRA as a deduction, or you are taking interest on home loan as a deduction, then it would be better if you stick to the old tax regime. तो हमारे calculations भी tell us the same thing. So अगर आप सिर्फ 2.5 lakhs का डिडक्शन ले रहे हैं जिसमें HRA या इंटरेस्ट ऑन होम लोन इज़ नॉट गेटिंग डिडक्टेड, तो वो केस में अराउंड आपका सेविंग फॉर 15 lakhs वुड बी अराउंड 25%. But if you compare that with the new tax regime, if you compare this with if you are taking HRA as a deduction or interest on home loan as a deduction, then the old tax regime would be much better, and the tax save in that old regime would be much higher.
Alright, thank you. So इस बजट नोट का हमने ऑलरेडी PDF लिंक में शेयर किया हुआ है आज के चैट लिंक्स में, एंड सेम चीज़ हमारे सारे कस्टमर्स एंड ऑल्सो टू सेलेक्ट पीपल जो हमारे कस्टमर्स नहीं है उनको भी ईमेल से मिल गया है, तो प्लीज़ आप अपने ईमेल आईडीज़ जरूर चेक करें, आपको ये रिपोर्ट मिला रहेगा. मूविंग ऑन if you can continue with that, सवाल है विश्वनाथ बड़वेलू जी का, is standard deduction available under the new tax regime?
Yes, so standard deduction of 50,000 is now been extended to the new regime as well. So पहले old regime में भी 50,000 का deduction मिलता था standard deduction, और वो अभी new tax regime में भी extend कर दिया गया है.
Okay, thank you. So there are a lot of questions around certain stocks are still in red. In fact, a lot of stocks are still in red, and selected stocks are in green across portfolios. So friends, just to share and जब भी portfolio comparison करें, please do it with Nifty. Nifty पिछले एक साल में it's down 2 to 3%. Because it's fluctuating every day, that's why I'm saying 2 to 3%. While mid caps and small caps are down even higher, much higher. Now and अगर recently आप कुछ portfolios देखेंगे जहाँ पे वो अडानी ग्रुप स्टॉक्स का एक्सपोजर ज़्यादा रहा होगा, तो the portfolios would be down far higher. Luckily or knowingly we don't have any exposure towards that segment, and therefore our portfolios are far more protected, and they would be down between let's say 5 to 8%. But please keep in mind कि यही अल्फा है, यही high risk हाई रिटर्न्स इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं जो मार्केट जब पलटेगा तो ये आपको अल्फा पॉजिटिव अल्फा भी देंगे. तो लिमिटेड पॉइंट आई मेकिंग इज कि काइंडली इवैल्यूएट एट अ पोर्टफोलियो लेवल, काइंडली लुक एट व्हाट इज द सराउंडिंग एनवायरनमेंट कि निफ्टी कितना डाउन है, ओवरऑल मार्केट की स्थिति क्या है, कितना वीक है मार्केट, एंड लास्टली प्लीज़ इवैल्यूएट मोर एट अ 2 to 3 year व्यू इफ़ नॉट अ 5 year व्यू. 3 years में काफ़ी ये कुछ न्यूट्रलाइज हो जाता है, मल्टीपल इवेंट्स आएंगे जाएंगे, काफ़ी वो न्यूट्रलाइज हो जाता है. सो दैट वुड बी अ बेटर वे टू जज, एंड वी हैव सीन इट. आप हमारे वेबसाइट पे जितने परफॉर्मेंस देखेंगे हम ज़्यादातर 3, 5, 7 years के ही बात करते हैं कि उसमें इफ़ निफ्टी इज़ गिविंग 12-13%, वी हैव द कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ गिविंग अ सर्टेन अल्फा, तो देयरफॉर वो 20% और मोर के आसपास वो रिटर्न्स एनुअलाइज TAGR का एक रफ, दिस वी हैव डन हिस्टोरिकली, देयर इज नो प्रॉमिस, दिस वी हैव डन हिस्टोरिकली, तो वैसा एक सेंस बन रहा है. व्हाट in by which year can we be we can have a good penetration of the EVs, so there's a question around that Norway is going to go electric by 2030. What will the real estimates in India be? I think you're talking about the EV penetration. तो maybe 2-wheelers में, 4-wheelers में, and other categories. Yash, what is the sense कब तक EV penetration अच्छा, if not 100, reasonably good penetration हो सकता है इंडिया में?
Right. So definitely government wants to reduce the dependency. So government wants to reduce dependency on fossil fuels, and that is why they are promoting to shift and move towards EV, right? So there are multiple reports, and if we look at the EV penetration as on 22, so it was 2% in India, and multiple reports suggest that EV penetration by 2030 should be in the range of 35 to 40%, and of course this would be driven largely by CVs as well as two-wheelers, and of course passenger vehicles would be the third leg which would be driving the EV, and this is what the signals are suggesting. If we look at the charging infrastructure, of course that is improving within the country. If we look at the Auto Expo 2023, and in the passenger vehicle segments, almost each and every stall in the Auto Expo had launched a new EV, right? So this is signaling that of course each and every OEM as well as the government is promoting EVs, and definitely the penetration by 2030 in India, the realistic penetration looks around 35 to 45%, and definitely that number is achievable.
View in the next 5 years. Nifty has delivered about 12 to 13% in the last 3, 5, and 10 years, compounded annual growth rates, and no reason why it cannot do same or better over the next 3, 5, 10 years. And basis that, one can expect the portfolios to compound. So broadly, the larger idea should be that portfolios should double every 4 years. If not earlier. That should be the bare minimum targets that one can have. उसके लिए Nifty is, even if it's growing at 12 to 13%, ये possible है achieve करना. That's broadly the view that one can take while investing in equity market. Given that now interest rates भी काफी बढ़ गए हैं जो across other asset classes में है. I would so yeah, there was a question on infrastructure कि इतना अच्छा 10 लाख करोड़ की बात तो की गई है, बट उसमें से रियल होता कितना है. तो मे बी फ्रैंकलिन इफ यू कैन टच अपॉन कि लास्ट ईयर जो केपेक्स अनाउंस हुए थे लास्ट में मे बी 1 या 2 साल में, उसमें से कितना गवर्नमेंट एंडेड अप अचीविंग, बिकॉज आई बिलीव कहीं उन्होंने ओवर अचीव किया, कहीं अंडर अचीव किया है. तो ओवरऑल एक्सपेंडिचर में, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में एंड रेलवे में एंड अदर जहाँ आपको यू हैव द नंबर्स, कितना रियलिस्टिक है इस बार भी, क्या वो ओवर अचीव कर पाएंगे?
Yeah, so I'll just give you an example of the Capex for the last couple of years. So last year, the expectation or rather the projection was 7.5 lakh crores, and what was actually achieved was 7.2 lakh crores, so very close to the actual projections. Prior to that, it was 5.5 lakh crores, and we actually ended up with 6 lakh crores. So we are very close to that number, and you see 5.5 lakh going to 7.5 lakh and going to 10 trillion. So government is very much on track in terms of achieving these capex numbers, and they are very much realistic.
Okay, so infrastructure obviously takes time, and we have seen the results recently where Mumbai Metro maybe there were 2 lines which were opened recently, and obviously it took a good 7-8 years for it to be built, given the amount of clearances, and it's a very difficult terrain to really construct, and obviously we have more such lines. So the larger point is that after a lot of years, things are finally taking shape, and infrastructure, obviously, given the way it is capital intensive, it is time intensive, and obviously, agar change of governments ho jata hai, तो it takes us a back seat. But directionally, if you look at it, if there is we have an edge over a lot of other developed and developing economies. Let's say in terms of the English speaking population, let's say in terms of the governance standards, let's say, or rules, regulations, or the bodies that we have, and now with the digital revolution that we are seeing. In fact, हमारा जो कल UPI transactions की जो बात की गई है, just correct me if I'm wrong, Franklin, it was I think about 125 lakh odd crores. जो उतना transactions was done through UPI, and I think with 70 odd crores was the volume, was around the volume. So that's like a big jump, some 80-90% jump YOY. And believe me, globally कुछ देश तो ऐसे हैं जिनको अभी तक UPI का पता नहीं है, वो कैसे अभी भी वो क्रेडिट कार्ड के टाइम में चल रहे हैं, but we are far ahead in that time. So the point I'm making is कि yes, infrastructure is an area where we are lacking. But we are making quick progress there over the last couple of years, and hopefully in the next 3 years there will be a lot of catch up that will happen in that, because the amount of expressways, metros, airports, ports that are getting built and will see light of the day over the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's quite a few. There are certain questions around some pharma names and maybe Parvati, if you can just give a quick 1 minute on what's the latest trend within the pharma space and what are the kind of companies that we are preferring at this juncture, basis the last the month or 2 months of numbers that have been out.
Okay, so within the pharma names, basically the results which has come in and the overall trend, what we are seeing is US markets where most of the Indian pharma companies have a decently high exposure, was slightly strained earlier, are now kind of seeing a decent growth or at least positive numbers, or the margin compression is less because the price erosion which was happening and the vendor consolidation which was impacting this is kind of now bottoming out. So that's a very good news, and companies having exposure towards US generic markets are kind of benefiting from there. Domestic pharma industry, strong numbers. Overall the consumption, overall from a domestic numbers in various pockets, more so if you're present under any chronic therapy or respiratory side, has been strong. So bigger names who have presence here have kind of reported good numbers. Apart from that, what we are seeing is most of the companies are also kind of looking at M&A as an opportunity to quickly expand into other newer areas or therapies, especially into the specialty side of pharma, where it gives them a better margins. So this is more on the pharmaceutical side, but given the government thrust, we are seeing infrastructure development also happening. So hospital companies and more so on the services side, you would see diagnostic companies which are kind of faring well. And the number of capacities which are coming up on the number of beds from the hospitals which were kind of slowed down or not happening because of COVID in the last 2 years has also been rampant, and Capex has gone up in both these segments. So overall positive for both pharma companies as well as companies which are present in the hospital spaces or services side, more like diagnostics and lab testings as well.
Okay, just coming back, Uday Shankar ji ka sawal hai, and just to close in on that, maybe for one final time, whether the Adani episode will be detrimental to its shareholders in the long run. What's your research analysis? So to its shareholders, तो I don't know मतलब आपको क्या करना चाहिए if you're already a shareholder, but the larger message that we can give is that one, obviously a disclaimer, we don't have any exposure at the fund level to any of the companies. Second, the some of the takeaways, let's call it a takeaway from whatever has happened so far. Could be that one, the leverage on the books, जितनी कम से कम रहेगी, debt to equity, debt to EBITDA, that may be better off in your portfolio companies. Similarly, pledge on the books जितना कम रहेगा, that may be better off. जहाँ पे institutional participation काफ़ी अच्छा रहेगा, domestics, primarily domestics. FIs में क्या है कि it becomes difficult to know कौन कितना FPI है, कौन FII है, कौन FDI है, and these are bodies जो कुछ 2 महीने के लिए, कुछ 2 साल के लिए, कुछ 2 क्वार्टर के लिए, कुछ 2 साल के लिए आती है. इसलिए FIs पे बहुत ज़्यादा we cannot take as much conviction, and especially अभी off late जो उन्होंने investments हुई हैं with the best of private equity guys, even they are down 30, 40, 50%. In global names including India. तो म्यूचुअल फंड्स एंड PMS इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज का अगर आप वो देखेंगे ब्रेथ, तो वो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट मैट्रिक्स रहती है. लास्टली द अमाउंट ऑफ डिस्क्लोजर जो कंपनी कर रही है, लेट्स से क्वार्टरली कॉन कॉल्स कर रही है, प्रेजेंटेशंस कर रही है, डिस्क्लोजर स्टैंडर्ड जो हैं उनके, दैट कैन ऑल्सो बी एन इम्पॉर्टेंट बैरोमीटर टू जज दैट. And lastly, goes without saying, कि valuation. Any stock which has gone up 100, 200, 300% in the last 1 or 2 or 3 years, incrementally FOMO effect जरूर रहेगा, but do keep in mind कि वो risk हमेशा रहता ही है. If you are trying to enter at a price which is 2x, 3x of what it was earlier. Goes without saying कि Adani Group ने भी काफ़ी improvement किए in all these parameters, but maybe there is some more lessons that they also might take away from what has happened. Interestingly, they have and maybe rightly so, they have withdrawn the FPO, saying that the price was so much, the price difference was so much high, and therefore they did not feel like, they thought it's morally not right to take that money. So maybe that is one right step, but there I'm sure they have. So Mr. Adani also made a quick 5-minute announcement today morning in the press, where he also admitted that maybe they also need to relook at their equity raise and capital market allocation strategy, and they also have some takeaways to from there. But hopefully, to conclude, market should settle sooner than later and be less volatile, and it quickly moves back to the fundamentals, where fundamentals of stock and sector specific, as early as tomorrow, and that should dawn the limelight from there onwards. There was a question around Vishnu Jika, for foreign remittances towards living expense of a son studying in US, will 20% apply? Kimberly, if you can just give your sense there.
So, as of the fine print of the budget, it's mentioned that the remittances towards education and medical are exempt and are not increased, and any other remittance under the LRS and also for overseas tour package purchase of overseas tours will increase from 5 to 20. So more specifically on these living expenses, we will have to delve into that. But yeah, under LRS, all the foreign remittances have increased from 5 to 20%.
Okay. Moving on, defense sector stocks. So we're not discussing stocks. In fact, there is a question around, somebody is asking for a green हाइड्रोजन एनर्जी सेक्टर स्टॉक. सर लेट्स नॉट गो कि कोई एक थीम अनाउंस की गई है और हम उसके स्टॉक ढूंढेंगे, क्योंकि अगले साल कलर बदल जाएगा. वी विल कीप ऑन चेंजिंग द कलर ऑफ द पोर्टफोलियोज एवरी ईयर. दैट्स नॉट अ गुड वे ऑफ that may be a very temporary thing. So the larger focus should be on looking at stocks where the returns can be made over a 2 to 3 year or maybe slightly longer. तो let's not change so much कि अभी डिफेंस पे नहीं किया तो हम डिफेंस वाले स्टॉक्स को उतना ध्यान नहीं देते हैं, या रेलवे को दिया गया है तो रेलवे के ज़्यादा लेते हैं. लेट्स नॉट डू दैट, बिकॉज अप्रोप्रिएट बैलेंसिंग होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. अनलिस्टेड recognition, all insurance stocks are down. There's a question, majority of the policies are below 5 lakhs and this move may have a little impact. Okay, why is insurance? We have covered that. In fact, anyone wishes to go through our recording, they can do that later because this will be uploaded on the YouTube. जैसे ही हमारा ये सेशन खत्म होगा, ये रिकॉर्डेड सेशन लाइव यूट्यूब में आपको मिल जाएगा बाद में. तो हमने डिटेल में सारे सेक्टर्स का कवरेज किया हुआ है. तो so you can go back and look at that. If the downside is bottom, can we start shopping now? Is the question from Mr. Chaudhary. Downside bottom. Okay, let me just give. I don't know if the downside is but downside एकदम आगे कि नहीं. But yeah, maybe another 4-5% downside more, maybe, and that is where the market might bottom out, but maybe not, right? So therefore, stock specific जहाँ interesting opportunity दिख रही है, one should look at putting investments there. Our sense is that the Nifty on a very conservative base should be at 19,000 1 year, and let's say more like a base case, it could be at 20,000. So if it is, let's say at 17,800, that's a good 10-15% upside from current levels. And individual stocks ka it could be more, right? 20-25% stocks. So let's look at it at that way. So if you don't want to deploy capital, सारा आज नहीं deploy करना है, you can put like 50% today and spread the balance over the next couple of months, so that you you end up having a staggered approach. Do we have bank PSU shares? Yes, John Benedict, we have. But we stick to the top, within the top 5 banking PSU only, without going to specific names. In fact, top 3 only. We don't go beyond that. Becomes very difficult to justify the द प्राइस टू बुक में भी अट्रैक्टिव, बट वो ROE और फ्रेमवर्क में वो नहीं सेट होते हैं, आदि ROE एंड रिटर्न इक्विटी एंड ROA फ्रेमवर्क में. As we move towards the end of this session, I think we've answered a lot of questions. I think I'm just having a quick glance. Is it a big potential for micro cap in this budget? There have obviously been some startups के लिए, maybe Amay, you want to just give a quick line कि startups के लिए क्या announcement हुआ है, and that obviously can have some impact on the micro caps as well.
Yeah, so startups के लिए ये है कि whatever losses they had suffered, so ये the benefit that they can carry forward their loss. So earlier it used to be that they can carry forward their losses for a period of 7 years, as in they can take the benefit of that loss and they can set it off against their profit. और अभी ये 7 years जो था, अभी ये extend करके 10 years कर दिया है. So in that way it is beneficial, and more startups would be attracted to start their businesses. So on startups, that is one thing, and other thing is that there are some income tax benefits to some eligible startups, so that date got extended from by 1 more year. So earlier it was till March 2023, and now it is extended to March 24. So in that way also they would be benefited in terms of paying no to lesser tax for the startups that will get incorporated in the next 1 year.
Okay, we just we'll close in the next 5 minutes. Auto sector पे क्या view है, and will it make a comeback in the near future? Is a question. Yash, if you can briefly talk about it.
So definitely auto sector was in trouble for last 3 years, and if we look at the FY23, of course auto sector has revived from the headwinds which were like GST and demon and the semiconductor chip shortage, right? So now the semiconductor chip shortage availability the issue has been resolved to a greater extent, and of course the chips are available, as well as the production has also improved globally. And definitely if we look at the volumes for FY23 or CY22, of course there is a good jump, be it two-wheelers, be it passenger vehicle, as well as commercial vehicles. So we remain positive on the auto sector, and we are seeing that it is recovering very well, and of course it will continue for the upcoming 2 to 3 years in EV as well as the ICE variant.
Okay, again questions around personal tax पे जो changes हुए हैं. Again you can listen to the recording, Dean Cooper and other people who have asked that question. Again, stock specific questions around Bajaj Finance, Lavpal, etc. We won't be able to take it up. It's all we would have released notes on all these stocks wherever we have a holding, and we would request you to kindly look at that. And again, there would be changes around the buying range, review range, because the market's volatile and there are changes happening. So the idea is to give you the latest update everywhere. Have we delivered 4x, 5x in the past? Yes, we have. And all those returns are there on the website. And obviously not all stocks would travel that journey. Some stocks would be flat, some will be 2x, 3x, and some stocks would go as high as 7 to 8x. Again, it's all there on the website. But at a portfolio level, the larger message is 20 to 26% compounding is a very realistic thing to expect over a 3 to 5 year view. And all such individual stock specific recommendations जो हैं जो इन्होंने in the past perform की हैं वो वेबसाइट पे मेंशन्ड है होम पेज पे, एंड पोर्टफोलियो लेवल का भी जो रिटर्न रहा है वो भी पूरा वेबसाइट पे वी हैव पुट इट डाउन. Why are we holding some of the stocks that are down? obviously the fact that, let's say, a quality name like, again, just recommendations, Asian Paint, Avenue Supermart, Bajaj Finance, HDFC Life, and so many other such names, if they are down 20-30%, does not mean that they have we should start booking loss or start panicking and move out. The किसी में 20% है, किसी में 30, किसी में 40 और more, does not mean कि वो जो जितना ज़्यादा डाउन है वो उतना ही ट्रबल में है, या उतना ही you start judging the stock basis कि कौन कितना डाउन जा रहा है. As long as they are fundamentally okay and good, as long as they have delivered returns in the past, I would suggest to look more at a portfolio level rather than एक stock को dissect करके कि why it's down so much and why are we not exiting. And we would have a churn ratio of about 20-25%, and basis that हम जरूर आपको we would give you that this thing. एक क्वेश्चन पार्वती आपके लिए कि बजट से पहले और जो बजट के बाद हमारे स्टॉक्स हैं वो हम चेंज नहीं किया है हमने. So is budget that important for a portfolio manager to really start changing the portfolios? Your take on that?
ओके, सो बजट से पहले और बजट के बाद, सो अगर आपने बजट में देखा होगा, दे काइंड ऑफ गेव अ 7-pointer थीम दिस टाइम नेम्ड एज महारिशीज, विच बेसिकली अगर वी गो बैक टू हिस्ट्री ऑल्सो, महारिशीज एक एरा में होते हैं. सो ये 7-pointer थीम भी जो है, इट विल प्ले आउट स्लोली एंड ग्रेजुअली. एंड वाइल दे हैव बीन एक्सप्लिसिटली कॉल्ड आउट, इस बार उन्होंने उनको नाम दिया है कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, इन्वेस्टमेंट्स है, अनलीशिंग पोटेंशियल है, यूथ है, right? They always have sub pockets, and some of these sub pockets were already there as a part of the earlier budgets also, which kind of focused on them. So what we are trying to say here is, कभी भी बजट के बाद या बजट से पहले वन शुड नॉट गो सेक्टर स्वीपिंग. हमेशा इट हैज़ टू बी अ मोर बॉटम्स अप अप्रोच, जहाँ पे आप स्टॉक स्पेसिफिक देखते हैं एंड विच काइंड ऑफ हेल्प्स परफॉर्म इन द लॉन्गर रन अक्रॉस सम ऑफ दीज थीम्स. सो इसके लिए आपको पोर्टफोलियो में एलोकेशन या चेंजेस एकदम इमीडिएट या तुरंत नहीं मिलता है. It's more about how you progress on a particular theme on a multiple year basis. So इस बार का जो theme है infrastructure investments, the government has already been doing that for in different pockets in the last couple of years, and we already hold stocks on those names in the space where we say building materials हुआ, आपका cement हुआ, या उस stories में. So इस बार major emphasis is only on these two parameters of the 7. पॉसिबली नेक्स्ट टाइम हो सकता है कि ग्रीन एनर्जी पे हो, या ऑन द अदर साइड ऑफ द 7 नेम्स दैट वी आर टॉकिंग, द 7 थीम्स दैट वी आर टॉकिंग. सो द होल कंस्ट्रक्ट इज, वाइल बजट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्योंकि वो एक डायरेक्शनल व्यू देता है, यू कैन नॉट बी स्विचिंग स्टॉक्स प्री और पोस्ट बजट जस्ट बिकॉज किसी सेक्टर पे ज़्यादा एम्फेसिस है. इट हैज़ टू बी प्लेड आउट इन अ मल्टी डेकाइड थीम और मोर एटलीस्ट बेयर मिनिमम 2 to 3 years पीरियड टू एंश्योर दैट द रिटर्न्स आर ऑल्सो इन सिंक टू वॉट इज एक्सपेक्टेड. So इसलिए आपकी portfolio allocation will not just be dependent only on one budget or how important a particular sector has been given an allocation in the budget itself.
All right, thank you. So the notifications and alerts, all of that are sent just as a policy to all the customers. But on if there are material changes, let's say we sent a event note or a quarterly note. For all other practical purpose, I would request everyone to look to their dashboards to get any changes, to look for any changes there. And please do आपके जो allocations दिए गए हैं stock specific, उसको adhere करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So kindly ensure that we have seen a lot of cases. Every second query जो हमें आती है, उसका जो बेस होता है वो यही है कि कहीं हमने 3% दिया तो दी इन्वेस्टर हैज पुट 6 or 7, कहीं हमने 5% दिया दी इन्वेस्टर हैज पुट एज मच एज 15-20%. Obviously that's not the right thing. So a sincere request, kindly follow these stock specific allocations. Still, if there are any questions, feel free to write to us, stock specific or कुछ भी customer service, and the customer service team or the research team will send a reply within a couple of days. I would yeah, so this recording, I mean this YouTube recording would be there even after the session, so you can go back because some of the questions are repeated, and we have already touched upon that. And thank you so much to all the people. We have almost at 1.5 hours now, and we would thank all the participants today who've taken out time. to the research team, and to our digital and support team, Naveen, Chandamani, Sham, and all the wonderful teammates in the digital team who planned and organized this session very, very effectively today. Thank you so much, and happy investing, and look forward to meeting you again soon.